And let's stand up on our feet right now and give him the biggest welcome to Mark.
Come on!
This is my first time at RIZN. Yeah. So, can I just say before I start really quick, you guys have something special going on here. The team and the leaders and the people that work to put this on, like, if you haven't been to any other youth groups or other churches, or if this is your first time, like, you have to know this isn't normal, okay? So, can we give another round of applause for RIZN and for the leaders and for the team, the band? So my name is Mark, and I do a few things. First of all, I'm married to my beautiful wife, Courtney. And she's my better half, okay? I always tell her that if she ever leaves me, I'm coming with her. And she misspells her your, and yours, which is like one of my biggest pet peeves, but she's still a 10, okay? Because she's anointed, come on. She's beautiful, and she's amazing. And she's a woman of God. So we have two beautiful kids. Maverick, he's 18 months old. He is a handful. And I have a daughter named Kezia who just turned 3 months old yesterday. So our house is wild and it's crazy, but we have a lot of fun. And I've been working at Vanguard Bible College for the past 2 years. And I've been a professor teaching theology, discipleship, and spiritual formation. However, I'm now done at Vanguard College, and I'm starting a new job at a place called Youth Rise. And Youth Rise is an organization that works with youth, and we do everything in our power to help youth rise. We believe that through drop-in programs, sports, mentorship, leadership, job prep programs where we help them write resumes and get connected to jobs and help them with interview prep, we believe that we can truly see youth rise and become adults that contribute to society and influence and change everybody. So I'm stepping into that role in September, and I do have some swag to give away. So here's what I want to do. I got some stickers. Who likes stickers? And this isn't crazy, just a little Youth Rise shirt, okay, representing. Now here's what I want to do. I still don't know how to say this, so I want somebody to come up here, the first person to come up here and tell me a cheer's full name will get this t-shirt. Just come up here right now. Somebody, quick, somebody. Oh, I'll give it to him. I'll give it to him here. Wait, where's the cheer? You have to verify if he has to pronounce it like exactly how you say it.
A cheer, mading, mau, ding, agwer.
That's all you, dog. Here's take the stickers too. Thank you. Yeah. It's good. Hey, share some of those stickers with your friends, okay? Okay, guys, let's grab our Bibles. If you don't have a Bible, that's cool. I'm going to have the verses on the screen. But we're going to read from John 15. I'm going to read this passage. I'm not going to say too much. And I'll read it, and then I'll explain where we're going, and then we'll go from there. Sound good? So John 15, starting in verse 1. I'm reading from the Message. If you don't like that, that's cool. I think this translation, it's a contested translation, but I think it really captures the essence of this better than other translations. So Jesus says, I am the real vine, and my Father is the farmer. He cuts off every branch of me that does not bear grapes, and every branch that is grape-bearing he prunes back so it will bear even more. You are already pruned back by the message I have spoken. Live in me. Make your home in me just as I do in you. In the same way that a branch can't bear grapes by itself, but only by being joined to the vine, you can't bear fruit unless you are joined with me. I am the vine, you are the branches. When you're joined with me and I with you, the relationship intimate and organic, the harvest is sure to be abundant. Separated, you can't produce a thing. Anyone who separates from me is dead wood, gathered up and thrown on the bonfire. But if you make yourself at home with me and my words are at home in you, you can be sure that whatever you ask will be listened and acted upon. This is how my Father shows who he is when you produce grapes, when you mature as my disciples. So the title of my message today is Make Yourself at Home. Somebody say, make yourself at home. Let's pray. Jesus, I thank you for your word. I thank you that you're real, that you're active, and that you're alive. And I thank you that you're here right now and you're moving. You're touching hearts, you're touching minds, and I pray that you would soften our hearts and soften our ears to understand your word, to receive your word, and to have it grow and multiply in our hearts 3, 6, and tenfold. And Lord, with all favor and with all wisdom and all mercy, I ask you would bestow upon the Red Pirates grace and favor to take home the RIZN Camp Cup. In Jesus' name, I said, amen. I just wanted to stir the pot. I'm on Games team, clearly. All right, so I am not from Canada. And in fact, English is not even my first language. Can somebody guess where I'm from? I heard it over there. No, that was close. Okay, wait, chill. I am from Germany. That's where, are you German? I was born and raised in Germany. And I moved here when I was 8 and a half, 9 years old. And when I was in Germany, we'd moved a bunch of times, like 6 or 7 times to different cities. And then we packed up all our earthly belongings, me, my 3 siblings, and my parents, and we moved all the way across the pond to here, Canada. And when we were in Canada, we moved to Millwoods, and then we went to Leduc, and then New Sarepta, and then Sherwood Park. And now I got married, and I live in the city. So we've lived a lot of different places, and I've moved a lot of different times. And if you've moved a lot, what you know about moving is that when your outside world is changing, you look for things that give you glimpses of home. And for me, because of my outside world, my school and my friends and my family was always changing, I learned to find little glimpses of home in hobbies that I had. For example, skateboarding. I picked up a skateboard first when I was 6 years old. And everywhere I would go, I could grab my skateboard, I could go outside, and for just that brief moment of time, I would feel like I was somewhat at home, regardless of where I am. Being in Canada, not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, shoveling snow with a spade because we didn't have a shovel, that is all real. And so here's the kicker. If you've moved a lot, you know this. Trying to find home in different things. But here's the kicker. If you don't make Jesus your home, you will always be lost. If you don't make Jesus your home, you will always be lost. And this passage is talking about that. Jesus is talking to his disciples, okay, his followers. Followers are like the people that watch your TikToks, but they're real people. And Jesus is talking to them, and he's just about to go to the cross. So he's kind of giving them like a last minute hoorah before he goes ultimately to be betrayed and to die on the cross. And so he's preparing them for his departure. And he's saying some pretty interesting things. And this is an interesting story. Of course, it's a metaphor because he's talking about vines. He's talking about a vine. And a vine is not just a 6-second video. It's a tree for all intents and purposes. I don't know who here has experience with farming or vine, a vineyard. But a vine is basically a tree. And Jesus is saying essentially that he is the vine. God is the farmer who takes care of the vine, and we are the branches on that vine. Because when Jesus was physically with them, he was able to teach them and to talk to them, but he was going away. Like he was going to heaven, and now the disciples, just like us, have to figure out how to do life without Jesus physically present. And so this is kind of an instructional encouragement to them. And I think this is pertinent, and I want to share some of my story today because I think it's pertinent, and this verse, this passage has kind of become what we call a life verse, a passage that I keep coming back to, something that keeps challenging me the more that I read it. And when I reflect on my life, I can really see a pattern of kind of 3 things in this text that happen in my life. And the first one is this: pruning. Pruning. Somebody say pruning. Jesus says, I'm the real vine, and my Father is the farmer, okay? He cuts off every branch that doesn't bear grapes. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you're a branch, your job is to produce grapes. If you're not doing that, bye-bye. But check this out. Every branch that is grape-bearing, he prunes back so it will bear even more. So if you're not producing grapes, see you later. We all understand that. But even if you are producing grapes, you'll be pruned back so that will grow even more. And this idea of pruning is pretty interesting. It's the best analogy I have, because I have long hair, and I actually just cut it. It was like down to here, is split ends, right? I grew out my hair because I'm low maintenance. I don't want to get a haircut every 2 weeks. And for me, it was just like, I could just let it hang and grow. And I got married, and my wife starts talking crazy nonsense about like, babe, you got to brush your hair. And I'm like, you're crazy. You got to condition your hair? Like, what are you talking about? And another thing she told me is you have to cut off your split ends so the hair can actually grow back healthier. I didn't want to cut off any of my hair, but she told me that if you don't cut off the dead split ends, your hair's actually not going to be healthy and not grow back fuller than if you wanted to. And that's what pruning is. It's actually a necessary part. And so I grew up in Germany, and Germans are intense. Who knows that about Germans? I'll give you an example of this. Ready? So in English, we have words like butterfly, okay? You see a little bug, it floats, beautiful colors, butterfly. My 18-month-old son loves butterflies. Do you know what the word for butterfly is in German? Schmetterling, okay? So Germans are intense. And so I grew up in a church in Germany that was just as intense. And so it was the type of church literally where men and women were separated. So you had women on one side, men on the other side, and women wore head coverings and dresses that covered their whole body, and men wore suits with ties that weren't pointed because the point's to hell, so they had to be, this is no joke, they had to wear square ties or bow ties. And so I'm growing up, I'm getting into skateboarding, I'm getting into drumming, I'm getting into, growing my hair out, just being a kid, jumping off the roof onto the trampoline and building ramps in the backyard with my friends. Like, this is just the kid I was. And when I was a teenager, I literally had a pastor in this church look me dead in the eye. And he said, Mark, if you want to play the drums, you are possessed by the devil. And so think about what that does to a kid when I'm trying to live my life, I'm trying to have fun, and here I am being told by the people that are supposed to represent God to love me, to cherish me, and to champion me, telling me I got to cut my hair, I can't wear hats in church, no skinny jeans, no rips in your pants, don't play the drums. So basically, like, have no fun. That's what they told me. And so I was like, all right, so I go to youth group because my mom made me. That was my grounding. When I got grounded, I had to come to youth group. And so I bring all my friends with me, my drug-dealing friends and my skateboarder friends. I'm not joking. And we would just cause havoc, right? We would break stuff. We would ding-dong-ditch the neighboring houses. And I got kicked out of youth group when I was 15 years old. And the youth pastor said, see you later. And what's wild about that is I look at my upbringing, and I can be mad, and I can think of the ways I was hurt, and I can just think that I could have thrown church and Jesus out entirely. And obviously, I'm standing here today, so I didn't. And I recognize now that that was a pruning, because here's the reason. When I now do this and I have the privilege of sharing about Jesus and being involved in church, how do I know how to do church well? I do exactly the opposite of what I was taught. Going through that experience has taught me that nobody is unwelcome, nobody is unaccepted by Jesus, no matter what you look like, no matter what you're into, no matter what you've been through, no matter what your fears are, your insecurities are. Come as you are. And I read about Jesus, and he invites everybody. And so that's the pruning. Okay, so I do the opposite of what I was raised in. And following Jesus is the best adventure ever. Right? Like, the church I grew up in was the epitome of boring. So following Jesus involves pruning. The second thing that happens if you are a branch on the vine is connection. Connection. I love this passage when Jesus says, live in me, make your home in me just as I do in you. A branch, if you just find a branch on the side of the road, it's completely useless. And Jesus is saying, get connected to me. I am the vine. Live in me, make your home in me. And so I lived my teenage years looking for satisfaction in everything and anything except for Jesus because I was hurt by the church I grew up in. And it was the youth pastor, actually I should back up. What happened was I was on a snowboard trip, and I'd just gotten back, and like it was a bender. Like, it was so wild, I don't even remember it. And I got back, and I'm just saying this to provide context. It was 4 a.m., and my mom comes running into my room hysterical. She's bawling her eyes out. I'm like, Mom, what's going on? And she says, Marcus just died in a car accident. And Marcus was my cousin. He was 17 years old. He was joyriding with some friends. They lost control, and he died on impact. And so here I am living my life thinking that I can do life on my own. I had these dreams of traveling the world, playing drums in a punk band, skateboarding, partying, and doing all of that. And here I'm confronted with the death of my cousin. I go numb. I'm going into grade 12, like my second half of grade 12. And I'm numb. I'm in a whirlwind. I'm confused. I'm dazed. I don't care about anything. I'm completely numb. And the youth pastor who kicked me out of his youth group has the audacity to send me a Facebook message and say, hey, Mark, I'm thinking of you. I hope you're doing well. And I was like, this guy's weird. Like, who does that, right? Who kicks someone out of youth group and then, hey, man, I hope you're doing well. I'm thinking of you. I miss you. And so I thought, you know what? Maybe this guy doesn't hate me. Maybe this guy would accept me. And so I had coffee with him at Starbucks, and he told me about Jesus. And I don't really remember much, and he just told me to go home and read the book of John. And so I grabbed this thing. I dusted it off. I had an old one from my parents, and I read it. And I read, live in me, make your home in me, just as I do in you. In the same way that a branch can't bear grapes by itself, but only by being joined to the vine, you can't bear fruit unless you are joined with me. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And so if you're trying to be connected to the world and to accomplishments like success, you're going to feel lost and you're going to feel useless. And so the second part of that is connection. The third part, if you're a branch on the vine, he says, this is how my Father shows who he is. When you produce grapes, when you mature as my disciples. So there's a pruning that takes place. Then there's a connection piece where you're connected to the vine. And then now, let's say you're connected to the vine. You've made your home in Jesus, which just means you've said, yes, Jesus, I choose to follow you. I believe that you're real. And now there's a maturing process. So now you begin the long, tedious work of living this out in your day-to-day life. When you first meet Jesus, it's exciting. You come to RIZN, you go to RIZN camp, and God touches you, and it's easy to be a Christian. But then life hits, and now, look, I'm married, I have 2 kids, we just bought a house, and it's all exciting, but it's adult stuff, y'all. Like, sometimes I look around like, where's my dad? Like, I'm not the adult in this scenario. I don't know how to deal with this, a mortgage and all stuff. And my son, Maverick, I forgot to share this. He's 18 months now, but when he was 30 days old, he had open heart surgery because at birth he was diagnosed with a defect called total anomalous pulmonary venous drainage. And we had no idea that this was to be the case, and so they diagnosed it at 5 days old, and at 30 days old, he had open heart surgery. And so for 4 months of his life, he was in and out of the hospital, not really sure if he was going to make it, not sure what was going to be the result of his life. And so I'm serving God. I'm working at Vanguard. I'm a professor teaching the Bible. I'm going to Youth Rise, hanging out with youth. I'm talking about Jesus, and my son is literally in the hospital in the ICU, and I'm supposed to go, God, how does this make sense? And that is part of the pruning process and part of the maturing process. And so what happens is, if you're connected to the vine, you notice a cycle. So there's a few of you in this room tonight. Some of you have never made Jesus your home. And you're trying to find peace and satisfaction in anything and everything but him. And if that's the case, make Jesus your home. Look to Jesus. He is the answer. Listen, I don't just believe him blindly. Like, the church I grew up in actually gave me every reason not to be on the stage talking about Jesus right now. But when I began to ask questions, I realized that Jesus answered every question that I had, every desire that I have. And it's crazy that I get to do what I get to do now. That's because I've said yes to following him. And it's like wild that I get to follow Jesus and he takes me on adventures like you've never known. And so saying yes to Jesus is pretty simple, right? You have to believe that Jesus is who he says he is, that he came to earth to show us what it means to be human. And you just decide, hey, I want to do this. I want to live like Jesus. Jesus is our example and we follow him. And so you say yes to that, and you pray to Jesus by yourself. If you pray with one of your leaders, I'm happy to pray with you as well. But you pray to God and say, God, I want to do this. I want to make my home in you. I can't do life on my own. I'm useless on my own. I want to start producing fruit. I want to start being more kind, more joyful, more loving. I want to have peace. I want to have purpose in my life. Some of you have already done that. Some of you have already made your home in Jesus, and you are maturing, and you are starting to see signs of, hey, I'm becoming more Christ-like. I'm becoming more loving. I'm becoming more patient. And then all of a sudden, something happens, and now you're being pruned again. Because listen, pruning hurts. It's not an easy thing. And it's a hard concept to grasp that when you're doing well and doing what you should be doing, that you're actually being cut back and pruned, which hurts. And so some of you are being pruned in whatever you're going through. I can't imagine what you guys in this room are going through. And so maybe you're being pruned, and you have to realize that this is part of the process. And some of you just need to be faithful in that walk of maturing and remaining in Jesus and remaining in the vine. Because Jesus is the answer to all problems. I want to pray with you. I don't have a lot to say. I love Jesus with every fiber of my being, okay? I was a punk kid, and I really, here's the thing. I wasn't like sad or depressed or like I wasn't a loner. Like, I actually was doing well. I had friends, and I was getting success in snowboarding and skateboarding. I was getting sponsorships, and I was having fun. Like, I just say that to say, like, I was having fun, and I didn't think that I needed God. Because when I looked at what Jesus offered me based on the church I grew up in, I thought, I don't need this in my life. This is not adding anything to my life. And it took my cousin's death and me to ask some hard questions to actually realize how broken I am, how lost I am without Jesus. And so Maddie can come up and play softly. And I just want to in concluding, it makes everything more spiritual, right? The Holy Spirit enters as soon as the piano starts playing. But I want to give you just a minute, minute and a half, just to reflect a few moments and consider where you're at. Have you made Jesus your home? Are you trying to do life on your own? Are you trying to live apart from him? Maybe you have made Jesus your home and you're struggling with the connection and maturing of the daily walk. And you're going, man, being Christian at my school is hard. I'm the only one in my school who's a Christian. Maybe your family doesn't even support that you're a Christian. Maybe you're here because a friend brought you and your parents they don't know Jesus and they don't respect Jesus, and so they don't even necessarily love you being here. So just a few moments wherever you're at, I want you just to sit and reflect. And I'm just going to give like 30 seconds for you just to sit. And then I want to pray with you wherever you're at. I'm going to pray. And then, of course, afterwards, Sophie and Aaron are going to come back up. And like I said, I'm around if you want to chat, if you want to pray. I'd be more than happy to do that. I know that you have amazing leaders here who love you, who care for you deeply, and they're more than happy to walk this thing through with you as well. But, man, get to know Jesus. Get to know him intimately, get to know him deeply, because he is the answer to everything. I am the real vine, and my Father is the farmer. He cuts off every branch of me that does not bear grapes. And every branch that is grape-bearing, he prunes back so it will bear even more. You are already pruned back by the message I have spoken. Live in me. Make your home in me just as I do in you. In the same way that a branch can't bear grapes by itself, but only by being joined to the vine, you can't bear fruit unless you are joined with me. I am the vine, you are the branches. When you're joined with me and I with you, the relationship intimate and organic, the harvest is sure to be abundant. Separated, you can't produce a thing. Anyone who separates from me is dead wood, gathered up and thrown on the bonfire. But if you make yourself at home with me and my words are at home in you, you can be sure that whatever you ask will be listened and acted upon. This is how my Father shows who he is, when you produce grapes, when you mature as my disciples. So Jesus, may those words penetrate our hearts. I pray for those in this room that have never made you their home, that are wandering through life. They are lost and they're looking for peace. They're looking for purpose. I pray you would speak to them right now. You would touch their hearts right now, that they would have the boldness and the courage to say, Jesus, I need to make my home in you. I pray for those that have made you their home and that are trying to walk this thing out, trying to follow you in this day and age. I pray you would encourage their hearts. Those that are being pruned, that are experiencing setbacks, that feel like they're failing or they're being pushed back for whatever reason, God, would they recognize that this is an intentional pruning by you to strengthen them and to encourage them. And I pray for everybody here as they go to camp next week, God, would you encounter them, would you meet with them and transform lives just like you do. So we love you, Jesus. This is all for you. This is all because of you. This is all from you. This is all to you. We love you, Jesus. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Hey, guys, well, we have prayer in the room here if you guys want to stick around and if there's anything that you need prayer for, anything that you want to talk about. But other than that, we have bonfires outside. We have Dutch Blitz, RIZN Camp style in the gym. So we're celebrating RIZN Camp tonight. But can we give one big hand to Mark before head? Okay, you guys are dismissed.